"Your mama's dead, so what? You better serve my guests or you can sleep on the street," my husband laughed, a cold, jagged sound. I served the food with tears streaming down my face. My husband's boss, an older gentleman with a cane, grabbed my wrist. "Why are you crying, and why are you wearing black?" I told him. His face turned to stone. He walked up to my husband and said loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "Everyone knew your wife's mother, except you, apparently. She was my sister. And now, let me tell you what's about to happen to your career, your house, and your sorry excuse for a life." Hello, everyone. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Enjoy the story. But to understand how heavy those words really were, we have to go back 4 hours. Zainab stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the kettle as it went cold. The call from the hospital had come exactly at noon. The doctor spoke in a dry, businesslike tone, but Zainab only remembered one word: expired. Her mother, Etta, was gone. For 4 hours, Zainab just sat on a stool, staring at a spot on the wall, until the front door slammed in the hallway. Kyrie was back. He flew into the kitchen, loosening his tie as he walked, and immediately twisted his face in disgust. The stove was empty. No smell of roast duck, no prep work done. "Are you deaf or something?" he barked instead of saying hello. "I called you this morning. Today is the day Thaddeus Vance, my new CEO, is coming over. Whether I become VP or rot in middle management depends on this dinner. Where is the duck? Where are the appetizers?" Zainab looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. She tried to speak firmly, but her voice cracked into a whisper. "Kyrie, Mama's gone. She passed away today at noon." Kyrie froze for a second. He looked at his wife, then at the empty table, and an expression of extreme annoyance crossed his face, as if his car had broken down at an inconvenient time. "Died?" he asked coldly. "Well, we all gotta go sometime. She was over 60, had a weak heart. It was expected." "Expected?" Zainab stood up. "Kyrie, that is my mother. I can't host guests today. Call them, cancel. Tell them we have a death in the family." Kyrie stepped right up to her. He was a head taller and knew how to use his height to intimidate. He grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her hard. "You don't seem to understand," he hissed in her face. "Vance isn't the kind of man you say no to. He's driving all the way across town to see how his potential VP lives. If you start playing the tragedy card and mess this up, I will throw you out right now onto the street." Zainab looked out the window. Beyond the glass, the February wind was howling, sweeping snow against the gray apartment complex. She had no money, no keys to her mother's apartment because she'd left them at the hospital. She had nowhere to go. "You wouldn't do that," she said quietly. "Try me," Kyrie sneered. "This is a corporate apartment leased to the firm. You are nobody here. You have 2 hours. Wash your face, put on some makeup, and make this table look like Thanksgiving, and wipe that miserable look off your face. Guests want a party, not a funeral." Zainab swallowed her tears as she chopped vegetables. Her hands were shaking, the knife slipping, but she kept cooking. Fear of her husband and a habit of submission had eaten into her deeper than she thought over 10 years of marriage. When the duck was in the oven, she went to change. Her hand reached for the bright beige dress Kyrie liked, but her fingers chose something else on their own. A strict, high-necked black dress that hit below the knees. It was her quiet rebellion, the only way to honor her mother's memory in this house of absurdity. Exactly at 7:00 p.m., the doorbell rang. Kyrie threw the door open, spreading a fake, wide smile. "Mr. Vance, what an honor. Please come in." A tall, solemn man of about 65 walked into the entryway. He leaned on a heavy cane with a silver handle. His gaze was sharp, heavy. He looked around the cramped hallway, the cheap wallpaper, and finally rested his eyes on Kyrie. "I hope the dinner is worth dragging myself all this way," he grumbled in a deep bass voice, taking off his coat. "Oh, my wife is a culinary miracle." Kyrie pushed Zainab forward. "Meet my Zainab." Thaddeus Vance nodded at her without smiling. Zainab tried to squeeze out a greeting, but her throat seized up in a spasm. She just bowed her head and quickly retreated to the kitchen. Dinner turned into torture. Kyrie kept cracking jokes, pouring cognac for his boss, and endlessly bragging about his non-existent achievements. Zainab brought out plates, changed silverware. Tears flowed down her cheeks continuously, silently dripping onto the collar of her black dress. Kyrie noticed. When she leaned in to take an empty plate, he kicked her hard on the ankle under the table. Zainab let out a small cry, but immediately covered her mouth with her hand. "What's wrong with you, dear?" Thaddeus asked, looking up from his food. "She's just so clumsy," Kyrie interjected quickly, flashing a vicious glare at his wife. "And too sentimental. She saw a stray kitten this morning, still crying about it. Women, right, Mr. Vance?" The guest didn't answer. He was watching Zainab closely. In his eyes, there wasn't irritation, but a strange, intense curiosity. "More wine, Mr. Vance?" Zainab asked with a trembling voice, picking up the bottle. She approached the guest from the right side. Her hands were shaking so bad that the neck of the bottle clinked against the glass. She reached forward, and at that moment, the wide sleeve of her black dress slid down to her elbow. On her thin, pale wrist, an antique silver locket on a heavy chain gleamed. On the lid of the locket was an intricate engraving, 2 crossed keys, and a phoenix. Thaddeus Vance froze. His hand shot forward with unexpected speed for his age and grabbed Zainab's wrist. The wine bottle slipped from her fingers and smashed on the floor, flooding the linoleum with a red puddle. "What are you doing, you idiot?" Kyrie yelled, jumping up. "That's vintage wine." "Silence!" Thaddeus barked so loud that Kyrie plopped back down into his chair. The old man didn't let go of Zainab's hand. He pulled her closer to the light, peering at the locket. His fingers were trembling. "Where did you get this?" he asked hoarsely. "This crest? Where?" Zainab looked at him in fear. It's Mama's. She gave it to me a long time ago. Told me to keep it safe and never take it off." Thaddeus raised his eyes to hers. Now he was looking at her face, as if he were seeing a ghost. He studied the shape of her eyes, the line of her cheekbones. "What was your mother's name?" he asked quietly. Etta Griggs." "And her maiden name?" "I don't know. She never said. She told me she had no family except me." Thaddeus slowly loosened his fingers. He leaned heavily on his cane and stood up with effort. His face, usually flush with authority, had turned gray. "Etta," he whispered. "Etta May. 30 years I've been looking for her. 30 years. He turned to Zainab, and there were tears in his eyes. "Why are you in black, child? Why have you been crying all evening? Answer me." Zainab sobbed, unable to hold it in anymore. "Mama died today, at noon." A deathly silence hung in the room. You could hear the refrigerator humming. Thaddeus closed his eyes, and a single tear rolled down his cheek. Then he opened them, and a storm of rage was raging inside. He slowly turned his head toward Kyrie. Kyrie sat pale, mouth open, shifting his gaze from his boss to his wife. "Mr. Vance, I didn't know you two knew each other. She's just a—" "You forced her." Thaddeus's voice sounded like the rumble of an approaching avalanche. "Her mother died today, my own sister, and you forced her to roast a duck and serve you like a maid." "Sister?" Kyrie squeaked. "But she's just a seamstress." "She was a Vance!" Thaddeus struck the floor with his cane. "She ran away from our tyrant of a father 30 years ago to save her child. To save you, Zainab. She walked away from millions to live in peace. And you?" Thaddeus stepped toward Kyrie. Kyrie pressed himself into the back of his chair. "You are not just fired, Mr. Payton. You are finished. Tomorrow morning, no decent company in this city will even open your resume. I will personally see to it that you are sweeping parking lots for the rest of your days." Kyrie, realizing he had nothing left to lose, suddenly sneered. His face twisted with malice. "Oh, is that right? Well, both of you can go to hell. Just keep in mind, Mr. Vance, you are currently in my apartment. And you, Zainab, too. This is corporate housing provided to me by contract. Since I'm fired, I demand that unauthorized persons vacate the premises. And as for you, wifey, we'll settle this in court. Get out!" Kyrie crossed his arms triumphantly, feeling like he'd gotten the last word. Thaddeus suddenly started laughing. It was a terrifying, dry laugh. He pulled his phone from his pocket, dialed a number, and put it on speaker. "Legal Department, this is Vance. Pull up the file on the Peyton apartment, 45 King Drive, Unit 12. Whose books is it on?" The voice on the phone answered clearly and loudly. "Mr. Vance, that real estate is not on the holding company's books. 5 years ago, that building was transferred to the private Vance Family Trust. According to the trust bylaws, direct heirs of the family have ownership rights." Thaddeus hung up and looked at Kyrie, who had started sliding off his chair. "You didn't live here because you're a valuable employee, Peyton. You lived here because my security team has long suspected where Etta might be. And we kept this property just in case. This apartment belongs to the trust, and the sole heir of my sister is right here." Thaddeus pointed his cane at Zainab. "So it's not you kicking us out. It is Zainab who will decide right now if you stay under the roof she owns." Kyrie shifted his gaze to his wife. For the first time in years, genuine animal fear appeared in his eyes. Zainab wiped her tears and took a step forward. "Get out," she said quietly but firmly, pointing at the door. Kyrie backed away, hit his back against the doorframe, and suddenly his face distorted. Fear was replaced by a wild, cornered rage. He lunged sideways, grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the table, and hurled it with all his might at the wall next to Thaddeus's head. Shards flew everywhere. "You're the ones getting out!" he screeched, his voice cracking into a falsetto. "This is my house. I'm registered here. Just try and touch me!" He dashed into the hallway, and before Thaddeus could intercept him with the cane, slammed the heavy metal door right in their faces. One lock clicked, then the second, and the chain rattled. "I'm calling the police!" His muffled scream came from behind the door. "Hello, 911? Get here immediately. 45 King Drive. My wife got drunk, brought some thug over. They're breaking furniture, threatening to kill me. She's having a psychotic episode. She's unstable." Zainab stood on the landing, staring at the closed door of her own apartment. She heard her husband continue to lie hysterically into the phone, describing her non-existent drunkenness and aggression. "We need to break the door down." Thaddeus gripped the handle of his cane until his knuckles turned white. "I'll call my security." "No." Zainab shook her head. She had no strength left to fight. "The police will believe him. He knows how to be convincing. And look at me, crying in a stranger's apartment, on paper. They'll take us to the precinct until they sort it out. I don't want to spend the night of Mama's death in a holding cell." Thaddeus sighed heavily, admitting she was right. He draped his cashmere coat over her shoulders since her things were still inside. "Let's go. You can't stay here." They drove in silence. The city outside the window was drowning in wet snow, turning into blurred spots of light. Thaddeus's car was huge, warm, smelling of expensive leather, but Zainab was shivering with chills. She thought about Mama, about how her body was lying somewhere in a cold morgue, while her daughter was driving into the unknown with a man she was seeing for the first time. Thaddeus's home turned out to be not just a house, but a real estate in a gated community in the suburbs. Inside, it was quiet and empty. He led her into a massive living room where logs were already crackling in the fireplace and poured hot tea. "Why did she run?" Zainab asked, staring at the fire. "If you all are so rich, why did we live counting pennies?" Thaddeus sat in the armchair opposite. He looked like a tired old man, the mask of the formidable boss having slipped off. "Our father was a terrible man, Zainab. He built an empire on bones. To him, people were resources and family was an asset. He wanted to marry Etta off to a partner's son, a cruel and depraved man, to seal a merger deal. Etta begged him not to do it, but Father said, 'You will do what benefits the family.'" Thaddeus rubbed his face with his palms. That night she vanished, took only a small bag and that locket. She changed her name, her documents, cut all ties. I looked for her, hired detectives, checked databases. But she was smart. She knew how to hide. She chose poverty over a golden cage. She was afraid father would find her and take you away, or that I would become just like him. And did you? Zainab asked quietly. I tried not to be, he answered hollowly, but business requires hardness. Now that I've found you, everything I have is yours. Money, connections, lawyers. We will crush your husband. We will get the apartment back. You will want for nothing. Zainab set the cup on the table. The clink of porcelain sounded too loud. I don't want your money, Mr. Vance, and I don't need revenge right now. I want only one thing, to bury Mama with dignity, and then I'll decide how to live. The next 2 days passed in a fog. Thaddeus took on all expenses. He organized the service at the best funeral home in the city. Zainab barely slept, dealing with documents, choosing the casket, the wreaths. Kyrie didn't show up. He barricaded himself in the apartment, didn't answer calls, and seemed to have vanished from the face of the earth. The day of the funeral was gray and windy. Not many people gathered at the cemetery, a few neighbors, a couple of Mama's former colleagues from the sewing factory. Zainab stood by the casket, looking at her mother's peaceful face. She seemed so small amidst the white satin. The pastor began to read a prayer. Zainab closed her eyes, listening to the monotone chant, when the cemetery silence was broken by the screech of brakes. A black SUV pulled up to the gates. Kyrie stepped out. He was clean-shaven, wearing an expensive suit he'd bought with money Zainab had saved for a vacation. Next to him scurried a frail little man with a leather briefcase tucked under his arm, a lawyer. Kyrie didn't look like he was grieving. He walked toward the grave with the confident stride of an owner. "Stop the ceremony!" he shouted loudly. People turned around. The pastor fell silent. Thaddeus stepped forward, blocking his path. "You dare show your face here?" he growled. "Get out before I order security to bury you in the next plot." "Easy there, Uncle," Kyrie smirked. "We're operating within the law." The lawyer immediately popped out from behind his back and opened a folder. "My client, Mr. Kyrie Payton, is the legal spouse of Zainab Griggs Payton. According to state statutes, he has equal rights in decision-making. But that is not the main point." The lawyer pulled out a paper with a notary seal. 3 years ago, Ms. Etta Griggs signed a general power of attorney to her son-in-law, granting him the right to manage all property and represent her interests in all matters, including burial arrangements. The POA is valid for another 2 years. Zainab stared at the paper, and her legs went weak. She remembered. 3 years ago, Kyrie wanted to get a car loan, but his credit was shot. He asked to put the car in her mom's name, drove them to a notary, and slid a stack of papers in front of them. "Just formalities for the bank. Sign here and here, babe. We're late," she had signed without looking. "So what?" Thaddeus looked at the document with disdain. "This doesn't give him the right to disrupt a funeral." "It does," Kyrie interjected, adjusting his tie. "As my wife's mother's legal representative, I contest the burial site. I believe this cemetery is too expensive and inconvenient. I demand the process be halted and the body transferred to the city morgue until the dispute is settled." A murmur of horror went through the crowd. "You monster," Zainab whispered. "You want to take Mama's body? Why?" Kyrie walked right up to her. He smelled of expensive cologne and cognac. "It's very simple, Zainab," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "You are going to sign a deed of gift for your Mama's old plot of land out in Oakwood Heights, right here, on the hood of my lawyer's car, and we continue the funeral. You refuse, and your mother sits in a morgue cooler for another month while we sue each other." Zainab looked at him and didn't recognize him. This wasn't just a selfish man, this was an enemy. "The land?" she asked, confused. "That overgrown lot with the shack? It's just rotting wood and weeds. Why do you want it? It's worth nothing." Kyrie smiled smugly. "That's none of your business. Maybe I want to grow tomatoes. So, what's it going to be? You signing or is Mama going back into the cold?" Thaddeus, standing nearby, suddenly frowned. He whipped out his phone and quickly typed something. "Oakwood Heights, Lot 34, he muttered, looking at a cadastral map. His face changed. He looked up at Kyrie, and in his eyes there wasn't just contempt, but an understanding of the scale of the villainy. "Ah, you little vulture," Thaddeus drawled. "What is it?" Zainab asked. Thaddeus turned the phone screen to her. "Zainab, he isn't planning to grow tomatoes. Yesterday, the governor signed the final plan for the new federal interstate expansion. It goes right through Oakwood Heights." Zainab still didn't understand. She looked at her husband, whose cheek had started to twitch nervously. "So?" "So," Thaddeus said harshly, staring Kyrie in the eyes. "The state is buying out these lots under eminent domain, but not for the price of a shack. The land in this zone has been rezoned for commercial use. The compensation for your lot, Zainab, will be around $1.2 million. The crowd gasped. Zainab shifted her gaze to Kyrie. He knew. He had known for months. He didn't just want a garden. He wanted to steal over $1 million from her, blackmailing her with her dead mother's body. "You knew," Zainab exhaled. It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. Kyrie stepped back. Red blotches covered his face. The mask of the confident master of life cracked. "So what?" he snapped. "We're family. It's community money. Sign it, or I swear this coffin goes back to the city right now." "It's going nowhere," came Thaddeus's calm voice. He didn't shout. He just made a hand signal, and two sturdy men in black overcoats who had been standing by the cars silently approached Kyrie and his lawyer. "Your document is worthless trash," Thaddeus said to the frail lawyer. "A power of attorney can be revoked in a split second. Zainab, say it." Zainab straightened up. For the first time in days, she felt not pain, but a cold, ringing rage. "I revoke the power of attorney right now in front of witnesses." Kyrie's lawyer turned pale and snapped his folder shut. "In that case, we have no legal grounds to interfere. Mr. Payton, we'd better go." "What?" Kyrie screeched. "Who are you listening to? I pay you. Do something!" But Thaddeus's guards had already gently but firmly taken them by the elbows. "The service continues," Thaddeus announced loudly to the pastor. "And these gentlemen, please escort them to the gate." Kyrie tried to break free, shouting curses, yelling that he would sue everyone, but his voice was drowned out by the wind. A minute later, the black SUV peeled out and disappeared around the bend. The funeral proceeded peacefully. When the casket was lowered into the frozen earth, Zainab threw the first handful of dirt. With every thud of soil on the lid, something inside her died. The old Zainab, who was afraid to look her husband in the eye, who endured humiliation to save the family, stayed down there. "Let's go," she said to Thaddeus when it was over. "Where? To my place?" he asked. "No, home. To the apartment. I want to throw his things out right now." Together with Thaddeus and his security, they went up to the 5th floor. The door was unlocked. The lock was broken, as if someone had kicked it out from the inside in a hurry or tried to break in. Zainab pushed the door and froze on the threshold. The apartment was no more. Or rather, it was no longer a home. It was a battlefield. Furniture overturned, wallpaper in the hallway torn in strips. Shards of dishes, clothes, books lay on the floor. The TV was gone, the laptop too. Kyrie had taken everything of any value, even the microwave. "Lord," Zainab whispered, stepping over a pile of laundry dumped out of the closet. "He was looking for cash or documents," Thaddeus stated, surveying the destruction. "Or he just wanted to hurt you." Zainab walked into the kitchen. There, amidst the chaos, on the only surviving table, lay a thick folder. Written on it in black marker was, "To my beloved wife." Zainab's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were not letters or photos. They were letters from banks and loan sharks. CashNet USA, Speedy Cash, check cashing places. Dozens of logos that made her eyes blur. "What is this?" she asked, shuffling through the papers. Thaddeus took a sheet, scanned it. His eyebrows shot up. These are notices of overdue debt, pre-legal notifications, collection demands. But we didn't have loans, Zainab muttered confusedly. Kyrie said we lived within our means. Look at the borrower's name, Zainab. She lowered her gaze. In the borrower line everywhere was the same name, Zainab Griggs Payton. How? She dropped the folder, papers scattered across the floor. I didn't take anything. I haven't been to a bank in 5 years since I changed my card. The power of attorney, Thaddeus said grimly. The same one you revoked today. He used it not only to blackmail you with the funeral. He's been taking out loans in your name for years. Thaddeus took out his phone and called his lawyer. Half an hour later, they were sitting in the wrecked living room while the lawyer, having access to the databases via tablet, dictated the terrifying numbers. Total debt amount, $150,000, not counting late fees and penalties. Loans were taken out over the last 3 years. First from major banks, then, when the credit score tanked, from predatory lenders at insane interest rates. Zainab sat with her head in her hands, $150,000. She, a seamstress making $30,000 a year, owed $150,000. Where? She whispered. Where did he put this money? We didn't buy anything. I wore the same old coat. We ate pasta. He said he was saving for a condo. At that moment, her phone, lying on the table, rang. An unknown number. Zainab pressed answer. Ms. Griggs Payton? A rough male voice. Debt Recovery Agency. Your husband, Kyrie Payton, listed your number as a contact. He's hiding, but the debt is on you. When do you plan to settle? We have information about your place of employment. We'll come by there tomorrow, and we'll visit the neighbors. Zainab hung up. The phone immediately rang again. Another number, then another. The attack had begun. Kyrie hadn't just run away. He had thrown her into a pit of vipers. I'll cover it all, Thaddeus said firmly. My lawyers will contact all creditors tomorrow. We'll pay off the debts. To me, this amount is negligible. Zainab looked up at him. There were tears in her eyes, but her gaze was hard. No. Zainab, don't be foolish. They will eat you alive. You don't have that kind of money. If you pay, I stay the same fool everyone decides for, she said, standing up. First a husband, now an uncle. I've been a victim my whole life, Mr. Vance. I signed without looking. I endured. I believed. Enough. She walked to the window. The wind flapped a torn curtain. I need to understand where the money went. I need to find him. This is my business. Thaddeus looked at her with respect. All right, then let's look at the statements. The lawyer had already accessed the account activity. The lawyer turned the tablet toward them. Rows of transactions scrolled on the screen. Look, cash withdrawals were rare, mostly transfers. Regular large sums, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, all to the same account. Who? Zainab asked. Recipient, Lachey Williams. Zainab frowned. The name seemed vaguely familiar. Lachey. Lachey, that's his secretary, she remembered. He said she was just an assistant. A gray mouse, as he put it. The lawyer quickly typed the name into a search engine. Well, regarding Gray Mouse, I'd argue that, he chuckled. He opened a social media page. Looking back at them from the screen was a glamorous woman in furs, posing in front of the Eiffel Tower, expensive restaurants and beauty salons. Lachey's Luxe Bar, the lawyer read. Elite beauty salon downtown, opened 2 years ago. Owner, Lachey Williams. Thaddeus whistled. That's where your $150,000 went, Zainab. Your husband wasn't gambling. He was building a business for his mistress. With your money. Zainab stared at the photo. On one of the shots, taken at the salon opening, Lachey was cutting a red ribbon, and in the background, in the shadows with a glass of champagne, stood Kyrie. He was smiling like he never smiled at home, happily and proudly. She zoomed in on the photo. Lachey was wearing a necklace, the very same one Kyrie claimed he was saving for, showing Zainab pictures in magazines and promising to get it for their anniversary. Sorry, babe, Prices went up. Couldn't do it, he had said then. Rage, cold and calculating, finally displaced the fear. Zainab took the tablet and checked the salon's address. 10 Peachtree Street, she read. What are you going to do? Thaddeus asked. Zainab walked to the mirror in the hallway. It was cracked, but she saw her reflection. Pale face, black dress, hard eyes. I'm going there. I want to look into this business lady's eyes. I'm taking back what belongs to me. She turned to Thaddeus. Mr. Vance, I need your help. Not money. I need a good auditor, right now. We're going to this salon not to cause a scene. We're going to conduct an inspection of my investments. The auditor arrived in an hour. It was a strict woman in glasses with a folder of documents. Together with Thaddeus and his security, they headed downtown. Lachey's Luxe Bar shone with glass display windows, marble, gold leaf, huge chandeliers. Everything screamed of luxury paid for by Zainab's tears. She pushed the heavy glass door and walked in. The receptionist, seeing 2 security guards, turned pale and reached for the panic button, but Thaddeus shook his head. I wouldn't advise it, he said calmly. We're here for the owner. Lachey came out of her office a minute later. She was even more striking than in the photos. Tall, well-groomed, in a silk dress that clung to her. Zainab froze. Lachey's belly was noticeably round, 5 months along at least. Lachey looked Zainab over with a contemptuous gaze from head to toe, lingering on her simple black dress. Ah, the legal wife, she smirked, showing not a drop of fear. I thought you'd come sooner. Kyrie said you were slow. Where is he? Zainab asked, trying to keep her voice steady. No idea. Lachey shrugged and walked to a velvet sofa, sinking heavily onto it. The coward ran off, left me to clean up his mess. But it's fine. The baby and I will manage. She expressively rubbed her belly. Is that Kyrie's child? Zainab asked hollowly. Of course. We're a real family, Zainab. Not like you two, strangers in one apartment. Kyrie loved me and you. He just used you. Zainab stepped forward. This salon was bought with my money, with loans he took out in my name. I'm taking everything. Lachey laughed, a loud, biting laugh. You're taking nothing, Mouse. Look at you. You're nobody. And I have the best lawyers. And do you know what we have on you? She pulled a folder from a desk drawer and tossed it in front of Zainab. Open it. Zainab opened it. It was a photo of her, disheveled, face red, screaming, waving a knife in the kitchen. It was 6 months ago. Kyrie had driven her to hysterics with his nitpicking. She was cutting meat. He started yelling. She turned with the knife in her hand, crying. Turns out he was filming. Wife in a state of affect threatens to kill husband, Lachey commented. And there's a video where you're sleeping on the floor after taking sedatives, bottles all around. Kyrie set it all up. We'll prove you're mentally unstable, an alcoholic, and a danger to society. You'll be declared incompetent, and Kyrie will be appointed your guardian, which means all your rich uncle's inheritance. She nodded at Thaddeus. Haas will be under our control. Thaddeus stepped forward, his face darkened with anger. Do you realize who you are talking to, girl? He growled. A has-been tycoon who couldn't find his sister for 30 years, Lachey snorted. Your time is up, old man. It's the era of the young and bold. Get out of my salon, or I call the police, and show them these photos right now. Zainab felt her strength leaving her. They had planned everything, every humiliation, every tantrum. It was all part of the plan. She silently turned around and walked out to the street. Thaddeus caught up with her, trying to say something, to comfort her, promising to destroy Lachey in court. But Zainab didn't hear. She needed a place where she could breathe. Take me to Mama's, she asked, to her apartment. Thaddeus drove her. He wanted to go up with her, but she asked to be left alone. She needed to say goodbye. Etta's apartment met her with silence and the smell of medicine. Everything was just as it was when Mama was alive. The old sofa, the rug on the wall, the Singer sewing machine by the window. Zainab ran her hand along the back of a chair. Mama sat here in the evenings, sewing orders to help her and Kyrie with money, even though she lived hand-to-mouth herself. Zainab began to pack things, clothes into bags to give to the church, books into boxes. She opened the closet and saw the old dressmaker's mannequin covered in worn fabric. Mama called her Miss Hattie. She modeled her best dresses on it. Zainab hugged the mannequin, pressing her cheek against the cold fabric, and wept. Tears flowed like a river, washing away the remnants of her self-control. Suddenly, her fingers felt something hard under the fabric of the mannequin near the neck. There was a seam, but it had come undone. Zainab pulled at the thread. Hidden inside the stuffing was a small bundle. She pulled it out. It was a thick notebook with an oilcloth cover. A diary. Zainab sat on the floor right amidst the boxes and opened the first page. Mama's handwriting was even, neat. January 15th. Kyrie came by today asking for money again. Said Zainab has problems at work, needs to pay a fine. I gave the last $200. Don't tell Zainab, he asked. She'll be upset. Zainab turned the page. February 20th. Kyrie brought groceries. Strange, he never did that. Then started talking about the land. Says, sell it, everything's rotting there anyway. I said, no, it's a memory of Zainab's father. We met there. March 10th. Kyrie was yelling. He was scary. Said I'm a stupid old woman sitting on a pot of gold. I didn't understand what he meant. My heart seized up. He didn't even hand me water, left slamming the door. Zainab read, and the chill of horror shackled her body. Kyrie came here regularly. He had been tormenting Mama for months. He pressured her while Zainab thought he was working late. She opened the last entry. The date was the day before Mama died. The handwriting was uneven, shaky. Letters jumped as if Mama wrote in a hurry or felt very ill. April 12th. He was here again. Brought me new heart pills. Said he bought imported ones, expensive, because he cares. I took one in front of him. I felt sick, dizzy, chest burned like fire. He watched and smiled so strangely, like a wolf. When he went to the bathroom, I looked at the bottle. The label was re-glued, crooked. I saw him pouring something in the kitchen while I looked for my glasses. Lord, he wants to kill me. I'm scared to call Zainab. He said if I make a peep, something will happen to her. If I die, daughter, know this wasn't my heart. Check the blue bottle in the medicine cabinet. He switched the pills. Zainab dropped the diary. A scream got stuck in her throat. This wasn't just theft, not just adultery, not just fraud. This was murder. Kyrie poisoned her mother. He systematically, cold-bloodedly killed a human being to get hold of land for a highway construction. Zainab jumped to her feet and rushed to the bathroom. The medicine cabinet hung over the sink. She threw the door open. Medicines stood in rows, heart drops, bandages. She feverishly went through the bottles. The blue bottle was gone, empty. On the shelf remained only a round dust ring where it had stood. Someone had been here after Mama died. Someone took the evidence. Zainab looked in the mirror. From the depths of the glass, not a victim looked back, not a tear-stained widow. Looking back was a daughter who had just learned she lived under the same roof as her mother's killer. And this killer was somewhere free right now, planning to declare her insane and take everything else. You won't get anything, she whispered to her reflection. I will put you away, even if I have to dig up the earth with my bare hands. She grabbed the diary, shoved it into her bag, and ran out of the apartment. She needed Thaddeus. Now this wasn't just a family drama, it was war. Zainab ran out of the building, clutching the bag with the diary until her knuckles turned white. Thaddeus was waiting in the car. Seeing her face, he immediately knew something terrible had happened. To the police! She threw out, slamming the door. Urgent! He killed her! The whole way, she read Thaddeus the entries from the diary. His face turned to stone with every line. At the police precinct, they were met coldly. The duty detective, a young guy with tired eyes, twirled the old notebook in his hands. Ma'am, these are just notes, he sighed. Elderly woman, bad heart, imagination. Where is the proof? Where is this blue bottle of yours? It's gone, Zainab almost screamed. He took it. He was there. Who? My husband. The detective smirked. Any witnesses? Cameras? No. The body is already buried. The autopsy showed heart failure, which for her age and diagnosis is normal. To open a murder case and exhume, we need solid evidence, not a diary. Maybe she mixed up the pills herself? Or you, forgive me, are making this up on nerves to get back at a cheating husband. Zainab walked out of the office feeling helplessness squeezing her throat. The law was blind, and Kyrie was acting. That same evening, Thaddeus turned on the TV in the living room of his mansion. A talk show, City Speaks, was on the local channel. In the studio, on a soft couch, sat Kyrie. He looked perfect. Modest black suit, tragic expression, slightly red eyes. "I just want my wife back," he said with a trembling voice, looking straight into the camera. "We lived 10 happy years, and then this rich relative appeared. He turned her head with money, took her away, hid her in his castle. Zainab isn't herself right now. She's under the influence. She didn't even let me into her mother's funeral, can you imagine? Didn't let me say goodbye to my beloved mother-in-law." The host nodded sympathetically. "And is it true you were kicked out of your own home?" "True." Kyrie wiped a non-existent tear. "I'm staying with friends right now, but I won't give up. I love Zainab. I will save her from that golden cage." And then a special guest was invited to the studio. Out walked Ms. Bernice, Kyrie's mother, a small, withered woman in a headscarf. She started sobbing from the first second. "My son is a saint," she wailed. "He worked 2 jobs for Zainab, and she's ungrateful. Drove her mother to the grave with her indifference, and now wants to leave my husband penniless. Good people, don't believe her. It's all that cursed money." Zainab watched the screen and felt cold hatred boiling inside. Ms. Bernice, the mother-in-law, who for years nagged her about every speck of dust, who came to their home with her own key and rearranged pots. "Stop. Key." Zainab froze. Ms. Bernice had a key to their apartment. But did she have a key to Etta's apartment? She remembered one episode. A year ago, Mama ended up in the hospital, and Zainab asked her mother-in-law to water the plants while she stayed at the hospital. She gave her the key ring, and Ms. Bernice returned them only a week later. "I forgot to give them back, honey. Got lost in my purse," she said then, with a sweet smile. What if she made a duplicate? What if she took the bottle? Kyrie is a coward. He might have been scared to go back to the crime scene, knowing Zainab might be there. But his mother? His mother would do anything for her baby boy. "I need to meet her," Zainab said, turning off the TV. "With who? With that actress?" Thaddeus was surprised. "Yes. She knows more than she's saying, and she's greedy." The next day, Zainab called her mother-in-law. Ms. Bernice's voice on the phone dripped with poison. "What do you want, Judas? Conscience woke up?" "Ms. Bernice, I want peace," Zainab said firmly. "I saw the show. I'm tired of fighting. I have a proposal regarding the inheritance. I'm willing to give Kyrie part of the land money if you stop this circus in the press." A pause hung on the line. Greed battled with hatred. "Come to my place," the old woman grumbled. "Kyrie isn't here. He's meeting with lawyers. We'll talk." Zainab went alone. Thaddeus was against it, but she insisted. She hid her phone with the voice recorder on in the inside pocket of her coat. Miss Bernice's apartment smelled of peppermint oil and old dust. She met Zainab in a robe with a shawl carelessly thrown over it. She led Zainab to the kitchen without even offering tea. "Well?" She sat at the table, crossing her arms. "How much you giving?" "5 million, Zainab lied, referring to a smaller portion of the assumed inheritance. "But I need guarantees." The old woman's eyes glinted greedily. "5, too little. The land is worth way more. Kyrie gets 5 or nothing. I can drag the courts out for years." Ms. Bernice chuckled. "Fine. What do you want?" "I want to know the truth." Zainab leaned forward. "About the pills." The mother-in-law's face didn't twitch. She was a tough cookie. "What pills? You're delusional, honey, just like your mama before she died. I know Kyrie switched them," Zainab bluffed. I know you took the bottle. I have video from the hallway camera. You entered Mama's apartment the day after she died." It was a lie. There were no cameras in Mama's hallway, but Zainab prayed fear would work. Ms. Bernice turned pale. Her eyes darted around. She clutched her heart. This time, it seemed real. You're lying. There ain't no cameras there." "There are. The neighbor installed a peephole camera. I have the video. If I take it to the police along with Mama's diary, Kyrie goes down for murder. And you, as an accomplice, for destroying evidence." The mother-in-law started shaking. "I didn't know anything," she squealed. "He just asked me to stop by, pick up something. Said the medicine was expensive, shame to throw it out. I didn't know what he did. I just took the bag and threw it in the trash." "Threw it out?" Zainab's heart dropped. The evidence was destroyed. "Yes, in the dumpster by the house." "How was I to know?" She started sobbing. "He's my son. He said it was for business, that you wanted to ruin him." Zainab realized there would be no confession to murder. The old woman would claim ignorance. But she needed something she could hit Kyrie with, something that would destroy his alliance with Lachey. "Fine," Zainab said, changing tactics. "Let's say I believe you. But tell me one thing. Why does he need all this? He has Lachey now, a baby on the way, a new family." And here Ms. Bernice's face twisted. The malice she had been hoarding suddenly found an outlet. She hated Lachey even more than Zainab. "Family," she snorted. "What family? That painted hussy? She's milking him like a cow." "The baby." "Pfft, what's wrong with the baby?" Zainab asked, alert. The mother-in-law suddenly went silent. She realized she'd said too much, but Zainab had already latched onto that thread. "Ms. Bernice, if you stay silent now, I go to the police with the video. Kyrie goes to jail, and Lachey takes all his money, the money he stole from me, and lives happily ever after with another man. Is that what you want? Your son rotting in prison while that girl lives large?" It was a hit to the sorest spot, a mother's jealousy of her son's mistress. "She's lying to him," Ms. Bernice whispered viciously. "Lying to his face." "About what?" "About the baby. It ain't his baby." Zainab froze. "How do you know?" Ms. Bernice stood up, went to an old cabinet, and pulled a yellowed medical file from the back. "Kyrie got sick as a child. Bad. Mumps with complications. Doctors back then said, 'He will never have children.' I didn't tell him. Why upset the boy? Thought maybe a miracle would happen. But when that tramp showed up with a belly after knowing him 2 months, I knew right away. She got knocked up by someone else and is hanging noodles on Kyrie's ears, so he'll open salons for her." Zainab stared at the file in her mother-in-law's hands. This was a bomb. Kyrie didn't know he was sterile. For the sake of an heir, he robbed his wife, killed his mother-in-law, destroyed his life, and the heir was a stranger's. "Give me the file," Zainab said. "Why?" The old woman pressed the folder to her chest. "To save your son from that scammer. You want to open his eyes, don't you?" Ms. Bernice hesitated for a second. Then a vengeful smile distorted her face. She handed the file to Zainab. "Take it. Let him know what kind of snake he warmed up. Only, about the video. You'll delete it, right?" "Of course." Zainab nodded, hiding the file in her bag next to the phone that had recorded every word. "As soon as we're done with Lachey." She left the mother-in-law's apartment. Her legs were shaking, but her soul felt a strange, angry triumph. There was no evidence for murder yet, but she held a weapon capable of blowing up their happy family from the inside. And when they start tearing each other apart, the truth will float to the surface. The next morning, Zainab called Kyrie. "I'm ready to negotiate," she said dryly. "Enough of the show. Meet me at noon in the conference room of the Plaza Hotel. Bring Lachey. This concerns her too." "Oh, giving up?" Kyrie's voice was smug. "Realized you're nothing without me? Fine, we'll be there. Get your uncle's checkbook ready." The plaza was neutral territory. Thaddeus rented a small meeting room. He sat at the head of the table, grim and silent as a rock. Zainab was at his right hand. Only a thin folder lay before her. Exactly at noon, the door swung open. Kyrie walked in, shining like a polished penny, and behind him, clicking her heels, floated Lachey. She wore a white dress emphasizing her belly, and a fur coat, clearly bought recently. They sat opposite, demonstratively holding hands. "Well, relatives," Kyrie started, lounging in the chair. "Let's get straight to business. My terms are simple. 50% of Vance's company shares go to me, plus compensation for emotional distress, $20 million. And so be it. I give Zainab a divorce and forget about the apartment." Thaddeus didn't even blink. He slowly shifted his gaze to Zainab. "Your turn," he said quietly. Zainab picked up the folder. Her hands weren't shaking. Fear was gone. Only cold contempt remained. "Kyrie, do you really think you are in a position to set terms?" she asked. "Me? Of course." He laughed. "I hold all the aces. Public opinion. Videos of your tantrums. A pregnant wife. By the way, meet the future heir." He nodded at Lachey's belly. "That's my son, what you couldn't give me." Lachey rubbed her belly and smiled her predatory smile. "Yes, Zainab, we're having a boy, a real Peyton." Zainab silently opened the folder, took out a single sheet, a copy of the doctor's conclusion from Kyrie's childhood file, an old yellowed form with a blue stamp from the clinic. She slid the paper across the polished table. It glided over the varnish and stopped right in front of Kyrie. "What is this?" He frowned, reluctantly picking up the sheet. "Read," Zainab said. "Diagnosis: epidemic parotitis complicated by bilateral orchitis. Urologist's conclusion: complete azoospermia, irreversible infertility." Silence hung in the room. You could hear the air conditioner working. Kyrie read. His lips moved. He reread the lines over and over, as if they were written in a foreign language. This is nonsense," he whispered, raising completely white eyes to Zainab. "This is a fake. Mama never—" "Mama knew," Zainab interrupted. "She hid it from you for 30 years so as not to traumatize her beloved son. But yesterday, she gave me the file." Kyrie slowly turned his head toward Lachey. She sat frozen like a wax doll. The smile slid off her face, leaving a mask of horror. "You knew?" Kyrie asked. His voice was quiet, terrifying. "Kyrie, it's a mistake," Lachey babbled, scooting away from him. "Doctors make mistakes. Medicine is different now." "I'm sterile!" he screamed, jumping up and slamming his fist on the table so hard the water pitcher jumped. "Since childhood, I can't have kids. Whose bastard is that?" He grabbed Lachey by the shoulder. She shrieked, "Whose? Talk!" "Let go! You're hurting me!" she screamed, trying to break free. "Fine. Not yours. Not yours. Happy? You're a broke loser anyway. Where would you get money for a baby?" Kyrie recoiled as if slapped. I did everything for you. I took out loans. I opened a salon for you. I even—" He cut himself off. Lachey, realizing there was nothing left to lose, went on the offensive. Her face twisted into a grimace of hatred. "What did you do? Hung loans on your wife, hero, but you're a zero yourself. I thought you'd get an inheritance. Thought you were smart. But you're just a pathetic, henpecked man who can't even kill properly." It became so quiet in the room that the air seemed to ring. Thaddeus leaned forward. "What did you say?" he asked in an icy tone. Kyrie paled even more. "Shut up!" he hissed at Lachey. "Shut up! Right now!" But Lachey couldn't be stopped. Hysteria mixed with disappointment and fear of being left with nothing broke the dam. "Why should I shut up?" she screeched, poking a finger at Kyrie. "You promised me mountains of gold. Wait till the old hag dies. We'll sell the land, we'll live it up. And now what? I'm pregnant? No money. The salon gets seized for your debts, and for what did I put up with your slobbering?" "Where is the blue bottle?" Zainab asked loudly, standing up. Kyrie jerked toward Lachey, trying to cover her mouth with his hand, but Thaddeus was already there. He intercepted Kyrie's arm and forcefully twisted it behind his back. Kyrie howled and slammed face first into the table. "Talk!" Thaddeus barked at Lachey. "Where's the proof? Or will you go down as an accomplice in a group murder? You'll have to give birth in prison." Lachey started shaking. All her arrogance vanished. She was just a scared, greedy girl who played too hard. I didn't kill anyone. It was him. He thought of everything." "Where are the pills?" Zainab pressed. "Ms. Bernice said she threw them away." "Is that true?" "No," Lachey shouted. "She's lying. They're all lying. Kyrie didn't throw them away. He's paranoid. He kept them to blackmail the pharmacist." "What pharmacist?" Thaddeus asked. Kyrie wheezed under his hand. "Shut up, you fool! I'll kill the pharmacist who sold him that poison without a prescription." Lachey was selling everyone out to save her own skin. He hid the bottle in the garage inside an old winter tire. He said, "If that old geezer tries to turn me in, I'll show the bottle with his prints." "Who sold him the medicine?" Zainab walked right up to Lachey. "Name?" Lachey sobbed. "Uncle Elroy. Elroy Jenkins." Zainab froze. Uncle Elroy. Ms. Bernice's own brother, Kyrie's uncle. "He works as a pharmacist at the pharmacy on King Drive," Lachey continued, smearing mascara down her cheeks. "Kyrie went to him, said his mother-in-law needed strong pills but had no script. Uncle Elroy gave them. He knew it was the wrong medicine. He knew if mixed with her regular pills, her heart would stop." Zainab felt the floor drop out from under her feet. This wasn't just a tyrant husband. It was a family enterprise. Mother, son, and uncle. A whole clan that conspired to kill her mother for a piece of land. "Kyrie promised Uncle Elroy money," Lachey babbled. $5,000 for the vitamins." Thaddeus jerked Kyrie up from the chair. "Your uncle, you say?" He growled in his face. "Family business." Kyrie was silent. His eyes darted like a cornered rat. "Call the chief of police," Thaddeus told Zainab, "and tell them to send a squad to the North Side Garage Co-op. We're going for winter tires." Lachey collapsed onto the chair and covered her face with her hands. "And me?" she whined. "Nothing happens to me, right? I told everything." Zainab looked at her, at that expensive manicure, at the belly where a stranger's child grew, having become a bargaining chip in this dirty game. "Pray the baby is born healthy," she said. "He's already unlucky with a mother." They walked out of the hall, dragging Kyrie. He didn't resist. He was broken not by the arrest nor the exposure, but by the fact that his heir, for whom he committed murder, turned out to be a phantom. His male ego was destroyed, and that hurt more than handcuffs. But for Zainab, everything was just beginning. Now she had to find the bottle and look Uncle Elroy in the eye. The task force worked lightning fast. Thaddeus pulled all his old strings, and within an hour, the pharmacy on King Drive was cordoned off. Elroy Jenkins, Uncle Elroy, was taken right behind the counter. He didn't even have time to take off his white coat. During the search in the back room, they found not only unaccounted drugs, but a black ledger. There, among entries about selling codeine syrup to junkies, was one line: KP, special order, $5,000. Deposit, date matched, initials too. But while the police were filling out protocols and driving to the garage for that very bottle,